Hello. Saudi Arabia is seeking the death penalty for 5 suspects charged with the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi as the kingdom tries to contain its biggest political crisis in a generation. But their announcement was almost immediately dismissed as inadequate by Turkish officials. And a short time later, the United States moved ahead with sanctions on some of the Saudis involved in the case. We'll begin our coverage with Andrew Simmons in Istanbul.
Saudi Arabia's prosecution spokesman announcing the death penalty is being sought for 5 out of 21 men now indicted for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. They're not named, and the account of what happened once again differs from what Turkish prosecutors say they've found so far.
It was a brawl, fighting and injecting him with a large dose of a sedative substance that caused his death. The person who ordered this crime was arrested with another 4 operatives, and there was a total of 5. The body, after his death, was dismembered and transported outside the consulate building. Those 5 people took the remains out. The person who delivered the body to the contractor was a single person. A sketch of the contractor was drafted based on the description given by the person who handed over the remains.
The new Saudi version of events repeats the assertion that it was some sort of extraction operation ordered by Ahmed al-Asiri, the former deputy intelligence chief, no one higher than that. There was a clear denial that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was in any way involved. The Saudi prosecutions say the team was tasked to bring Khashoggi back to Saudi Arabia willingly or by force. And they say the leader of the team took it upon himself to actually carry out the murder. The Turkish ruling party says the whole account of events is a cover-up. Turkey's foreign minister is more diplomatic, but also dismissive.
As we have said before, this was a premeditated murder, and also, as we know, the remains of the person were cut to pieces, and the prosecutor has mentioned this. We already knew this, but the dismemberment of the body was not a spontaneous event. Certain individuals and devices were brought here to this country in advance. The 15 people who came to Turkey should be tried in accordance with Turkish law, because according to the Vienna Convention, the Turkish law is applicable in this case, even if the murder took place in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul.
Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir says criticisms of his country's investigation are unfair.
There is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. This presumption, for a strange reason, has been turned upside down in this case. If people don't think that we are serious about taking steps, legal steps, against people implicated in this matter, then they should wait until the legal process plays out before rushing to judgment.
On Friday, there are 2 significant events. Absentee funeral prayers will be held around the world for Jamal Khashoggi, and for the first time, his family will receive condolences at their home in Jeddah, an acknowledgement of not only his death, but that the body will never be returned. Andrew Simmons, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
In a moment, we'll cross to Jamal Al-Shayal, who's outside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. But first, let's go to Patty Culhane with reaction in Washington on today's events. So, Patty, what more can you tell us about the latest sanctions that the Treasury is talking about imposing against the Saudis?
You know, it might seem quite a coincidence that both the Saudis make these announcements and also the Trump administration comes out with these sanctions on 17 people. But we know that the Trump administration has been very reluctant to take action at the very top of the Saudi leadership. Still, the Treasury Department announcing sanctions on 17 people, including Saud al-Qahtani. He was a top aide to Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, and also the Consul General, Saudi's Consul General in Turkey. He's also been sanctioned for another top aide and 14 other people. So basically, what does this mean? It means Americans are barred from doing business with these 17 individuals, and any assets that they have in the U.S. or transiting the U.S. can basically be seized or stopped. These sanctions were probably expected by these 17 people, so it's highly unlikely that there are any assets to be taken. But still, the Treasury Department was forced to do this because senators, bipartisan senators, sent a letter invoking the Magnitsky Magnitsky Act, so that they had to basically investigate and have some response. This is the response the White House hopes is going to be sufficient. So far, we've heard from Senator Rand Paul in a tweet that basically saying putting sanctions on people who are already in jail means nothing. These individuals might lose their heads. You think they care about sanctions?
So that's the White House. What action, if any, has been taken by Congress?
Well, you could possibly see this as a test case, although you have to keep in mind there was just a motion basically to stop an arms sale to Bahrain because Bahrain is part of the coalition in Yemen that Saudi is leading. It failed. It failed in the Senate to get enough votes to get a full vote in the Senate. But none of the senators came out and said that they were for the Saudi-backed campaign in Yemen or that they were for Saudi Arabia. They said Bahrain is a key ally that shouldn't be punished because of its association with Saudi Arabia. From what we've heard in the run-up to these sanctions from the White House, senators have made it pretty clear that they really don't think that the White House is taking a strong enough approach and that they have threatened to do that if they didn't act. So now it's the Senate's turn. We're going to wait and see. They're going to react to the White House. The White House has made its play, and now it's time to see if the Senate follows through.
Patty Culhane, thank you very much. Well, Jamal Al-Shayal has followed this story for us since it broke in October. He joins us from outside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Jamal, do people there see as credible the idea that this killing could have gone ahead without the top leadership of Saudi Arabia knowing, given that it all happened inside the consulate?
Not at all. In fact, Lauren, the Turkish officials who have been speaking to the media have essentially dismissed this latest narrative as barely half-truths, as they described it to me when they first heard those comments, both from the Prosecutor General's office and then later from other officials in Riyadh. They said that although there was, it seemed, some sort of progress from the Saudis in terms of at least admitting to exactly what's happened, the fact that they're trying to dress it up as some sort of extraction operation gone wrong is a joke. They think, well, why would you send somebody who is able to dismember a body so quickly? Why would he be present in the consulate with the tools to dismember that body? And why would you get rid of those body parts so quickly and have a body double and all these other things that seem to just happen to have been there whilst this alleged extraction operation was undertaken? They find it very difficult to believe and therefore are quite frustrated, really, that the Saudis continue this late on, after more than a month, not to admit to what's happened, and more importantly, Lauren, continue to cover up as to who gave that order. They know Saudi Arabia very well. It is an absolute monarchy. Nothing can happen without the directive or decree of the royal court. And today, Saudi Arabia is essentially run by the Crown Prince, and therefore they believe that this could not have happened without the information, definitely without the information of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and most probably without his direct order.
So what is Turkey going to do about this now, then?
Well, that is a good question. I mean, if you look at the way in which the Turks have operated from the beginning, Lauren, you'll see that they've opted to use maybe slow pressure, essentially slowly cooking this up, increasing the heat every time they feel that Saudi Arabia has not been forthcoming. So in the beginning, in terms of establishing Jamal Khashoggi never left the embassy, to establishing that there was a hit team that sent him, to finally establishing that body parts, or remnants rather, and samples were found in the consulate and so forth. So that has been their MO from the beginning, albeit that it has been successful in trying to get some sort of international consensus, at least to put initial pressure on the Saudis. But it would appear that Ankara is also frustrated, not just at the lack of clarity and transparency being demonstrated by the Saudis, but also by the lack of vigor being demonstrated by its allies across Europe and the United States. They feel that they are allowing for a cover-up to take place, and therefore what is most likely going to happen, as we've been seen referred to by the foreign minister of Turkey in the past 24 hours, is that they're going to look for other options. And here, notably speaking, they're looking for an international investigation. Amnesty International has said it's Turkey's duty to trigger one. Turkey is very much thinking about it. The foreign minister said in the past 24 hours that there is definitely a need for it. Whether they do that through the International Criminal Court or through another mechanism, we'll wait and see. But you can expect in the coming couple of days more talk, increased noise from Ankara and Istanbul and Turkish officials going through the direction of probably enforcing some sort of international treaty or mechanism that would push the Saudis to come clean.
Jamal Al-Shayal, thank you very much.